Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Ramble and Mosey. I'm Jonathan Jaros. I'm your host for today. Joined as well by Anne Fleming from Little Traverse Conservancy, Cece Kirkwood from AllTrails, and Pitt Grewe, also from AllTrails. For those of you tuning in for the first time, a reminder that this is our conversation space around all things outdoor rec and conservation in Michigan. Really excited today to chat a little bit about the use of trails for community engagement, and then very specifically some of the tools that are available, especially through AllTrails, for getting more people outside and also helping raise the visibility and presence of trails in everyday life and community development. And you are Michigan specific for today. And obviously you've been working with the Little Traverse Conservancy for quite a number of years. Little T, as it's affectionately called, is also one of the oldest land conservancies in the state of Michigan. Maybe share with us a little bit about sort of how you entered Little Traverse's space, but then also the role that Little Traverse plays in the community there.
Sure. Well, I started here as an intern because I am from northern Michigan and have always worked in the communications realm, but my background is also environmental education. So the interest of making sure that we get kids outside. And so that is what's unique about Little Traverse, I believe, is that we have a really strong environmental education program. So our trails are used quite a bit by local schools. And it's just really wonderful because we're able to offer those programs for free. And we get thousands of kids out every year.
And Little T is how old, remind me?
This organization is 52 years old, so actually almost 53.
Very cool. Yeah, I think there's just some minor disagreement, but as I recall, it's the first land conservancy established in the state of Michigan, and certainly one of the largest in the country as well. Very cool.
It is.
Cece and Pitt, you have a really unique position with AllTrails. I think a lot of people sort of know AllTrails as an app floating on their phone. But there's a heck of a lot more to it than that, obviously, right? So give us the rundown a little bit on AllTrails, and then same thing, kind of like how you entered the space and you know what you're carrying forward.
Yeah, I can start there. So AllTrails ultimately is we want it to be the ultimate resource for people seeking to get outside. So it has typically been used by a lot of people to discover new places. But it can be so much more than that, right? You can use it to discover. You can use it to prepare and plan, and then also for maybe that inactivity or during the activity experience, right? Keeping track of where you're at, your mileage, all of that, and then a great community to share what they experienced out on the trails, which then goes back to helping in that planning and discovering and everything else. So it really can encompass. It's a platform to encompass the entire experience. And ultimately, that's kind of what brought me to AllTrails. So prior to working for AllTrails, I was working in the Utah Division of Outdoor Recreation. And we were working on a statewide master outdoor recreation plan, a huge undertaking here in Utah where we have so many stakeholders and so many sources of information to weave through and figure out, all right, how do we make an effective outdoor recreation plan to help recreation continue to grow in the state, to help encourage people to get outside, to help the local economies of our communities, everything else. So during that process, I reached out to AllTrails, to the CEO, and I said, hey, I'm looking for data on trail usage. I know you're one of the biggest, applications and platforms that people are using to discover places to go. What can we do to get some data to help us in this statewide plan? And the CEO, Ron, said to me at the time, this was a few years ago. He said to me at the time, like, we're not in the business of selling data. We're in the business of helping trail communities and helping trail goers find trails. So we have an idea. We're thinking of something of where we could support organizations like the Utah Division of Outdoor Recreation to help land managers, to help conservancies and land conservancies across this country. Let's keep jamming. Let's keep talking. Well, fast forward a few years, I'm at AllTrails. We launched the public lands program, which we'll dive into here in a minute. But ultimately, that's kind of how I got here, and just seeing the potential of impacts to help trails around the country.
in Pitt, it's a fair statement. Obviously, you're an accomplished athlete as well in that sense, and so I mean, this is something that's personal, not just professional, right? It's a deep dive into Pitt's life as well.
It can be, yeah.
We'll hope it is. Cece, how about you?
Yeah, my path to AllTrails was a little bit different from Pitt's. I have always loved spending time outdoors. I was definitely more of an AllTrails user before coming here. Although I will say that my husband was the holder of our AllTrails account until I started here. Tried to limit the number of apps on my phone. But I first worked in fundraising in DC, mostly in the museum space, a little in the women's space. So coming to AllTrails and working on the public lands program was really awesome for me to be able to put on my fundraising hat, but from the other side, instead of asking corporations for donations and things to do for the nonprofits I worked for, I now got to be on the side of offering help and finding unique ways for us to partner with the nonprofits, the land conservancies, the federal agencies, the city, state parks, all that kind of good stuff, to really make sure that AllTrails was positioning itself as a helper and a leader in this space, and not somebody who is creating more friction than needed between the visitors and those who are actually on the ground managing those trails.
Right on. And do you remember by chance, I know we all sort of got mashed together at a couple different conferences. Do you remember the first time that you personally sort of engaged with AllTrails? Is there a memory there at all?
Yeah, I used it when we were traveling to visit our daughter. She was going to college in Arkansas, so I was not familiar at all with trails in Indiana on our way. So we did, yeah. That's the first thing that pops up when you search, cool trail by me.
Well, and that's no mistake either. So I don't want to butcher it, but Apple awarded AllTrails, was it App of the Year in 24? Is that right?
23, the end of 2023.
End of 23, so leading into 24, yeah. So, I mean, how does, I think some folks are familiar with apps like Strava or Trailfork, some of the more sort of sport-specific apps. Is that the same tack that AllTrails takes in terms of a user experience, or does it look and feel a little different?
It may look and feel a little bit different, and there are lots of options for people to use, platforms to get outside, depending on what their activity is or kind of what their goals are, things like that. Myself personally, yep, I may use multiple platforms as well, depending on what activity I'm doing and whatnot. And so, to each his own. Really, the goal for AllTrails, though, is to make it accessible for all, right? There's information out there about trails in 1,000 different forms, whether you're a paper map person or whether you want to go to a not being mean here, but a poorly designed federal land manager site. We love them, but that's not their forte. Wherever you want to get that information, there's lots of options. The goal for AllTrails is to be accessible for all, and I think that's where they've really excelled, right? Like a concise, simple place where they can get accurate information to help them get outside. Let's reduce the barriers to entry to get people out on a trail or out to an open space or a park. You don't need to have a degree in reading maps to go on a hike, right? You should be able to find someplace nearby your home or nearby your in-laws' home if you're visiting, or whatever it is, to have a good experience outside. And that's really the goal. And that's what we hope. We don't want to say you have to do a big, huge journey, unless you choose to. It's more important that you find access to the outdoors at the level you're comfortable with. And that's what we aim for.
And in addition to the mapping capabilities of AllTrails, are there other features that you're finding that are supporting Little Traverse Conservancy and that users are taking advantage of?
We've been happily surprised to see the quality of the photos that show up on our AllTrails preserve pages, and that's going to be really useful for us all the time. We are able to download and use those in our communications. So great resource for us in that way. There's people out there taking pictures at different times of the day that we'd never be able to capture.
And let me add, right, like it's a great way for you to kind of keep track of the changing landscape. You're getting snapshots in time from users, right? Maybe a trail's changed over the last few years, and these photos become a useful resource for, again, planning and management in that case. So it's great.
Pitt, correct me if I'm wrong. So one of the things that organizations can do is curate their experiences versus a trail system. So let me try and ask it another way. So like if I'm Little Traverse Conservancy, I can identify some of the specific experiences that I want people to have. So maybe I'm at the off-field viewlands and I want them to know that this is a really awesome 30-minute loop. I can identify that loop as the experience versus trying to map out the system. Is that a way to think of it? Yeah,
exactly. Right. Like you're providing, again, just that experience a little bit for them to self-navigate versus self-navigating throughout a whole network. Yeah, exactly.
One of the ways that some of the other groups are looking at that is literally that. It's like thinking about, okay, like here's the off-field viewlands. There are 3 different experiences, 3 different like level experiences we want people to have. Maybe here's like the 2-minute hike with a stroller. Here's the 45-minute backcountry ski. Here's the 20-minute hike, and then sort of positioning those experiences versus trying to use it to map the system.
I'm glad you brought that up because we've had more requests lately for us to kind of rate our system, our trails, and that's a perfect way to do it. Yeah.
Well, that goes. Now I'm going into deep cuts here, but that goes back to that question too we talked about of QR codes and also sort of like tracking who's doing what, because each of those experiences then can be whether through AllTrails or otherwise can be linked back to specific, like, did I do this? So did somebody take experience A versus experience B? And gives you some idea of both user count and then also why they're choosing things that they are.
Yeah, and we work with partners all the time to create lists of different experiences. So, biking trails in this area or good things to do on a day where you need shade. We have the ability to really curate and customize different lists for our organizations to share out. So it's not just piece by piece, trail by trail, but really getting this idea of different types of experiences based off of a curated overall adventure, kid-friendly trails, dog-friendly trails, that kind of stuff. We can really work with our partners to create.
I like that. Thanks.
Well, I think very, very naturally, that's also, I don't know if it's magical necessarily, but that's also kind of like the really synergistic, don't love the word, but synergistic fit with the conservancies in Michigan and around the country as well also, right? It's not necessarily about how hard you can crush it or, it's the funnest known time versus the fastest known time kind of thing, but that idea of creating access for the outdoors, creating access to trails, getting people outside. And then as folks develop individually, they can dive deeper. But it's that entry point that I think really creates a nice connection with the conservancies and AllTrails.
Well, and I think that comes to maybe conversations you've had with previous guests to your podcast about like, what is the outdoor industry, right? It's traditionally, it has been, all right, you're a skier or a climber, you're a hiker, backpacker, maybe you ride your dirt bikes, whatever it is. But that has expanded so much in the last 5 to 10 years, right? Where maybe you just like to go outside and garden and get your fingers in the dirt and, whatever. And that's your form of being outside. And that's totally cool, right? And that's the hope as we grow this industry and we grow the access is, people be able to find their place where they're comfortable.
Yeah, there's no one right way to be outdoorsy. And do you see, so Little Traverse obviously utilizes some of the traditional tools in land conservation easements, nature preserves, things like that. On some of your preserves, but not all, public access is encouraged. And that's usually through the form of trail development. And then also a very rich history as well of partnering with local communities on trail development. What are you seeing as the user base? Who's out there? What's their goal? Why are they trying to get out?
In our area, as I mentioned, we have the kids getting out because of the programs that we're offering too, as well as I'm sure with their families, but it is a retirement area. And as we were kind of joking at the start of this about the weather changes and how many more people might be coming to Michigan, that's a real consideration, but it's already a thing here. And so with an aging population, we're getting more requests. We're trying to meet it for trails that are more literally accessible and easier to navigate. So they're quite expensive.
The trails themselves are expensive?
To do them the full accessible, way is. And so we've just recently created a map that we're refining. We call it the Flat and Friendly map. And it's got 3 tiers of accessibility on our easier trails. So there's the full on, you could do a wheelchair and a stroller very easily on it, from there might be a few routes to, well, there's going to be a little bit more, but a lot of people can handle this. So that's what we're sort of moving into right now.
Thanks. I'm chuckling a little bit because when the AllTrails team visited Michigan, one of the parts that both Cece and Pitt talked about was maybe not flat and friendly, but very accessible, right? So Pitt and I are on a bike, and he's like, "Where's all the uphill?" I'm like, "We'll get there eventually, don't worry." Same thing. Cece's like, "I got to 4 or 5 trails all in one day." Sort of the accessibility and the ease of access becomes really important for us, I think. That's probably a good segue too. So Pitt and Cece both spent some time in Michigan. Tell us a little bit about your trail experiences here. Tell us about what you got to see while you were here. I know there were some quick visits, but what'd you like? What'd you love?
The sand dunes. I didn't think that I would ever walk such tiring hills made of sand, but it was absolutely incredible. I landed in Michigan and immediately got in my rental car and drove out to Sleeping Bear and did the 5 mile just rolling hills of dunes all the way out to see the lakes, and it was incredible. Doing that solo, it was one of my first trips I've done by myself, which also, big shout out to Traverse City. I've never felt so safe as a woman traveling alone. I really felt welcome immediately when I walked in there, and just being out there and just only seeing sand and miles of sand. It was a really cool experience, and not something that I get here in Virginia, near DC. It just was a really unique opportunity and really made me fall in love with everything that Michigan has to offer, from sand. It was really cool.
Yeah, I can say that, I had great hosts, came out for a Michigan Outdoor Summit, got to go ride bikes with some fine folks out there, and really experience, the love of the fantastic trails that have been built, and the spaces and the forest was fantastic. I'm used to being here in Utah. I'm used to every trail being towards a summit. I feel like, and that's not true, but I feel like that's what it is. Where in Michigan, the trail experience it felt different. It felt immersive in the woods, immersive on the trail, and the features around that, and wildlife, and flora. It was magical. So obviously, I had a good experience because it only took about 8 or 9 months before I loaded up my entire family and brought them out to Michigan and did the same thing and said, all right, we're going to experience the lakeshore. We're going to go walk up, calf deep sand and cuss it while we're going up, but love it on the way down. And, all of that, and brought my 3 kids and my wife, and were able to experience that. And had a great time. My kids talk about it still, months later, of the excitement and how much fun we had in Michigan, and visiting the area. So, there's just so much to offer. And again, I think it's just that, for lack of a better word to describe it, it's got such a great vibe. It's just like this outdoor vibe that is so fantastic.
This is probably the wrong week to make jokes about it, because as we're recording, most of California is burning, but we've talked often about Michigan and the Great Lakes being the Western States Climate Refugee Program, whereas Ann pointed out too, we're seeing a lot of folks move to not just the Great Lakes region, but Michigan in particular, based on both accessibility and then also some safety from climate related issues. I want to turn a little bit, if I can, to some of the specifics of AllTrails as an app, if you will. So I've already said it a few times, but the main interface for AllTrails for most folks is probably their mobile device. But there is also a desktop component to it as well. And that's obviously then also where the public land manager portal works into. So if you guys wouldn't mind, walk us through like newbie intro to AllTrails. Like, how do they get there? What do they do once they plug in? And then how do they sort of grow through that experience with AllTrails as both an app and a desktop version?
Yeah, totally. So Pitt kind of touched on this in the beginning when he talked about AllTrails, but the first thing that we like to be a part of is that inspiration, trying to show people that they don't have to be the best athlete or have all the best gear in order to be able to get outside. So we want to be able to make that searchability and that inspiration really easy, whether you're on a desktop and you search trails near me, or if you open up the mobile app, if you already have it, it immediately brings you to an explore page where you can see what trails are near you. We've got great searchability features, so you can search by, maybe you want a certain trail length, or you want to be in the forest, or you want to be able to see a particular type of vista. Maybe you're looking for wheelchair friendly trails, or you're out there for a bike ride or an OHV ride. So we've got all of those different tags and searchability to really make it easy to customize the adventure that you're looking for. And then from there, after you've chosen your trail, we've got that on-trail navigation. So what can we do to make sure that folks are staying on trail through these routes that we have drawn, hand-drawn, hand-curated by our internal teams here. They do a lot of work to make sure that trail information is up to date and accurate as much as possible. So trying to keep folks on the right path. And, from that trail page, even before they hit the trail, they can get all that information in the palm of their hand. What are certain tips they need to think about depending on what trail they're going to, what kind of shoes are involved. All of that information can be found on AllTrails thanks to our hand curation as well as recent user reviews. So once somebody's navigated, we allow them to set a review about a trail and then talk about what they experienced, both with photos and through words. So somebody could say, this trail was a little muddy today, or it was a little buggy today, or great conditions. All of that kind of stuff can be viewed, and we work really hard to kind of summarize that in a really easy way for somebody to get the big picture about what they're about to experience when they go on this adventure.
I'll add to that, then kind of taking that to the next level of the public lands program that Cece and I work in here at AllTrails. So again, it's the whole goal, right, from the beginning of AllTrails is to help people have the best experience outside, be safe, be in the know of what they can be prepared for, what to expect, everything else like that. Because what we want people to do is go out on a trail and think, that was amazing. I loved it. I'm going to do it again next weekend. Or similar to what I did in Michigan is like, I've got to bring my family here. All right. I'm going to introduce my kids to this thing called hiking or trail exploration or whatever it is. Right. So that's what we want people to do. How do we help that? Right. It's making sure the information is accurate and that they're prepared for that. Because what we don't want to happen, right, is somebody work up the courage and the energy and say, I'm going to this trail, and they show up to that trail, and then there's a big sign that says it's closed, or there's a bike race happening here this day, or, you can't take your dog here, right? And you've got your 3 dogs in the car or something like that, right? And then their experience is ruined. They're like, man, this hiking experience, it was rough. I didn't enjoy it. I'm not going to share it. I'm not going back out, whatever it is. So the public lands program was kind of born out of that to benefit our users. And it really serves a purpose as well to help the land managers also have a better experience with their visitors, right? Because if they can educate and catch people in the planning process as opposed to when they show up, right, there's a better interaction potentially there, right? So public lands program, we then what came from that is we basically provide a way for land managers to manage all the information that's reaching the public on these platforms, whether that's on web or whether that's on the app. So a land manager can go in and set an alert to say, hey, there's an event happening this weekend. You might not want to show up if you're looking for solitude on this trail this Saturday and Sunday. They may say it's closed because of, wildlife habitat or something, and it's a sensitive area at this time, so it's seasonally closed. All of that, no dogs allowed on this trail, or maybe, dogs are allowed, but you're required to be on a leash, or, whatever it is. All that kind of information can be edited and changed by the land manager. So it catches them in the planning stages of their outing. Again, better experience. When they get there, they're prepared. They know what to expect. They have a great experience outdoors. What we've also learned is this is also a great touch point in that planning experience for our users to educate them on stewardship and protection of these places. So, we can put in, or the land manager can, or our team can, whatever, we can put in little nuggets in there to be like, hey, this is a protected wildlife area. Like, why is that important? What does that mean, right? That means don't go off trail. Don't pick up eggs in a nest if you see eggs in a nest. Whatever it is that we want to educate people on, that maybe, again, could be their first time out there. Could be the first time they have experienced a desert environment if they're here in Utah, or the first time they're experiencing a marine environment, if they're hiking on the coast someplace, whatever it is. And educate them on best practices, how to be stewards of those places, how to make sure that they're protected and well taken care of for years to come. So really, it's just been a huge, great benefit from both sides to make our users have a better experience, and to have the land managers or the trail managers and organizations that are protecting these places have a direct conduit to millions and millions of users that are going to visit their spaces. And so a real win and just kind of a great effort all around, and really, have to say this, even though it's cliche, but like, it takes a team and it takes partnerships, and it's not all due to AllTrails, and it's not all due to land managers. It's us working together to really make this happen that makes it successful.
No, I love that. And I think the third stool, or third leg I might add to that stool, is it takes a team. It's the land managers, it's AllTrails, and it's also, as Cece pointed out, the users helping to craft what they're experiencing on the ground. So many times we hear the stories about someone says, "Oh, I followed Google Maps and it told me to go off this cliff." And you're like, well, right, because technically there's a road or a trail there, but that's about it in terms of its ground truthing. With that in mind, too, so we make a lot of jokes, a lot of memes, in particular on the internet, around like, don't pet the bison or don't fall into the hot spring geyser. We are seeing a lot of new outdoorists, new users. How are you seeing them engage with AllTrails? Obviously, we talked a little bit about sort of the best experience and kind of the ecosystem issues. What's the strategy for a brand newbie coming in? Like, how does AllTrails approach brand new in terms of ethics and land stewardship and pieces like that?
Ultimately, like, our industry has done a great job over decades to help these people do it. Like, and the simple answer to that is, if we can introduce people to leave no trace principles, is just getting familiar with these terms that we use, because there's so many new terms for somebody going outside. We say leave no trace now. Well, if you're a newbie, you have no idea what that means. But they do understand, but there are principles in there that they can understand if we can start to introduce them. And as we all know, right, nobody's going to digest all this information the first time, remember it, and it's going to stick with them forever. None of us do, right? It takes 7 or 8 impressions before we actually remember an ad, or we remember, a notification or something like that. So really, it's those small touch points that are important. So the way we approach this from AllTrails, right, is what are the small touch points we can have, whether it's alert on a trail page, maybe it's comments from other users, on a specific trail, whether it's messaging we're putting out through our marketing, things like that. All of that, these are just touch points to help these new users that can hopefully gain trust in us as a company, and then take that and start to live with these kind of stewardship principles moving forward. So I think that's kind of key, just the consistency across the board from us, and also growing that to reach people where they are. And again, it's in that planning stage. And so I mentioned, right, like the land managers are, doing a great job of, helping to communicate directly to these people through the Public Lands Program. We have 450 land management partners on board now on this new, this program, and that's great because we're starting to see it infiltrate all parts of North America, right? Different land manager types and everything else, and I think that's key. We got to get consistent across the board with all that. It doesn't work if we're only reaching the people that are visiting Colorado, or it's just the people that are reaching Michigan. But we need the people that are also experiencing trails for the first time in Georgia, in Alabama, in Washington, in Arizona, wherever they are, and make sure that we can start having that consistent messaging across the board and across geographies.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, outside of what we do with our land managers and getting the information on AllTrails that's correct and accurate and up to date, we also partner with a lot of really awesome organizations that do that sort of on the ground work of getting underserved communities outside for the first time. AllTrails is a 1% for the Planet partner, which means we donate 1% of our annual sales to different environmental organizations. And as proponents of that kind of stewardship, we are really committed to giving back and helping serve those different communities. So we work with organizations like She Jumps, who works to get women outside for the first time, Camping to Connect, that works to get young men of color outside for the first time, to really experience what it means to connect with nature in ways that they may never have even known that they could go outside and go to their local park or just take a walk around their neighborhood and really have that connection to the outdoors. These organizations work not just to get those folks outside, but to introduce them to the tools like AllTrails so that they can keep coming back to nature and keep getting that really positive impact that they saw the first time that they went outside.
Cece, you mentioned some of the land managers that you're working with, and also, Pitt, you mentioned the number of organizations now that AllTrails is directly engaged with. Little Traverse Conservancy in Michigan being one of those. And I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about, it's over the course of the 50 plus year history of Little Traverse, your breadth and depth in the community have grown. And I know there's a very intentional push to make sure that nature is available to everyone, that access is there for all, which kind of echoes what Cece was just talking about. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about the strategy and the thinking behind how Little Traverse Conservancy as a traditionally based, or at least 50 years ago, traditionally based land trust, is sort of broadened and deepened its reach into engagement with folks and access to nature.
Sure. One of the priorities that we are making right now is to make sure that there is a community trail accessible. I think we keep kind of tightening it closer. It's like within 3 miles of a town or a population center of any sort. So we're looking at what's accessible really close to town. So that's fairly new for us to make sure that that's happening. And some of our areas are more remote. We also work in the northern part of the Upper Peninsula, northeastern part of the Upper Peninsula, but some of those cities are good size, and we know people just aren't getting out as much as we would hope that they would. So that's one way that we're trying to improve accessibility. I also was just going to mention that we tried doing our own app, and we had someone on our staff create it, and it was a lot to just keep it up ourselves, and the platform kept adjusting and changing, and so I guess what we feel like something like AllTrails, because it is an accessible app, is just making it more readily available for people to just drive traffic to our trails. So, I think that as far as information readability goes, that's why we've gotten on board, is we feel like that's going to happen, and it is.
I think historically, a number of the land trust land conservancies in Michigan and around the country often sort of thought of their role as keeping nature from people, sort of protecting the last great places from people. There's definitely and very obviously been a shift in the cultural mindset, in particular the last 10, 15 years. Are there lessons that you've learned at Little T about doing that kind of broader engagement work that you might share with some of the others in their space?
Yeah, it's fun that you say that, because our longtime executive director, that was kind of his mantra here, and we've carried that forward, is that this organization is not protecting land from people, it's for people. And that's not to say that we're just letting people go scattershot over the lands, but we definitely, with the amount of land that we've been able to protect, as I said, want to make sure that there's something there for everyone. And, one of the biggest things around here is access to a great lake, or at least a lake. And so anything we can do is just a high priority to make sure that we're making publicly accessible trails to the water. It's really what people want. So, like everybody, we're just recognizing that need for health awareness and to make that easy and free for people. So it's in the forefront of our mind all the time.
Maybe a bit of an unfair question. When you're looking for resources as a land conservancy, when you're looking for resources on either best practices or sort of new ideas, are there other organizations in the state or other organizations in the Midwest that are providing inspiration for, or at least ideas for how Little T takes things on? In many ways, you're actually breaking trail for other folks. But who do you find inspiration from?
That's a big role that you play for us, Jonathan, is you help us connect with our other land trusts in the state, and we learn. Heart of the Lakes is our statewide connector organization. So, we're constantly trying to reach out and not recreate the wheel. So, yeah, we go to our state resources sometimes as far as the government goes, but we definitely prefer our organic partners that we're able to turn to. And it's nice. There are other good size organizations like ours now, and we're all trying to do the same thing. So we're learning from everybody. And we appreciate the gatherings that Heart of the Lakes holds for us so that we can have that opportunity that we don't always make for ourselves. And that's how we met AllTrails.
Super generous, not intended to be a leading question, but super generous. And I know too that both in terms of your board engagement and then the organization's engagement with what we might think of as more sort of traditional outdoor industry, whether that would be the Boyne Resorts sort of conglomerate, or whether it's the Outfitter in Harbor Springs, and some of the others, some of the bike shops, things like that. How are you finding engagement with the business side of the outdoor industry, the outdoor economy going? And then maybe ask you to drill down into a couple of specific examples, like some really cool stuff with the Outfitter in particular, especially around trail and access. So how are you finding your engagement overall? And then tell us a little bit about what's going on with the Outfitter.
Sure. We have quite frequent reach outs from businesses who want to partner with us in some way, or to, at least somehow support this work. I think, again, obviously groups like, we've just had 2 brand new bike trails that our land trust has created in this last year. So that creates a wonderful intersect with breweries, obviously with the bike shops themselves. So we are intentionally seeking to do joint events with them. And it's just a win-win-win because we do try to keep the economy also in mind as we're bringing these things to the community. And a bike trail checks a lot of boxes for people. So the Outfitter just happens to be an outdoor-oriented store just down the road from us, and the owner and his father have been on our board. So it's just a wonderful connection, but they will have regular series at our nature preserves, and we don't even have to get involved. They're just doing it, but it's a beautiful thing. So if we need to have equipment rentals, we can work with them, obviously. But another really big one that I just would like to spotlight is in the Upper Peninsula. There's an area known as the Lachino Islands, and we've partnered with that community it'll be 10 years this summer, the 10th annual Aldo Leopold Festival. And it's been a wonderful way to bring an event into their community that extends their shoulder season and also gets people to come for the things that they want to showcase in their community, which is their natural resources in a quiet ecotourism sort of way. And so that has just been really cool because it's elevated all the things that they've wanted to. It's gotten people on the trails, and all of the sessions are learning opportunities, birding, all kinds of. It's super cool. They're just about to release their schedule for the next festival, and you're going to want to go.
I mean, I think that's one of the hallmarks of Little Traverse in particular is being present. Is showing up. It's not just a matter of doing work from an office. It is the community that you're serving. We talked a fair amount today about new users, or at least emerging users for trails and outdoor spaces, both in Michigan and across the country. I think inherent in all of that is this idea that we're sort of watching people come into our Church of the Open Sky, right? Where they're coming into being an outdoorist. And I think all of us have kind of an established outdoor identity, which might feel a little bit weird, but it's, we literally wear it. You can tell someone who engages outside by sort of how they're carrying themselves or how they're smiling, or maybe there's a little bit too much fleece on in the middle of a really warm conference room. Pitt, if you needed to sort of sum up your outdoor identity, who is Pitt?
Well, that's tough. I was born and raised to spend as much time outside as possible. And again, it kind of comes back to, like I just mentioned, my attitude towards there's no bad adventure. There's just, good adventures and then maybe adventures where you actually accomplish what you were trying to do, but they're all good. Right. And so, for me now at this stage of life, I have 3 kids, and trying to get them as psyched as me on outdoor activities that I love to do, is learning how to understand that maybe not everybody wants to do what I want to do all the time. And it's different levels of how they can enjoy themselves outdoors. So for me, somebody who grew up, I love skiing, I love whitewater, I love riding bikes, I love climbing rocks, mountains, fly fishing, snowmobiling, whatever it is, anything to get outside, to burn that energy, to experience a new place for me. And now I find myself figuring out, all right, how do I help people connect in a way that's best for them? It doesn't have to be a big adventure. It doesn't have to be, and we've talked about this a little bit, but how do I help my kids find a connection and a special place for them? It may be riding a bike. It may be climbing. It may be just, sitting by a river or sitting by a lake, any of those things. So I would say I'm a humbled, has-been adventurer. Maybe that's a good way to put it. That just came to me. So that's what I'm going to go with. A humbled has-been.
I love that. Cece, what about you? What's your outdoor identity?
I thought about this one a good bit. I love a little bit of whimsy and finding the magic in the world. And I think the best place to find that is outside. And my first activity of choice outside is just walking or hiking. I could move my legs and keep walking until they fall off. But I think the true enjoyment for me is just standing still and taking in what nature has to offer. So for that, I'd call myself a photosynthesizer. I want to just take in, whether it's the sun, that true sunlight in winter, just feeling that on my face, feeling the breeze. That's really where I found and continue to find my happiness and my peace. And I think that that's approachable for everybody. You can step outside and just feel nature around you, whatever that might be. So yeah, I'm a photosynthesizer.
And humbled outdoorist, photosynthesizer. Where does Anne Fleming fit into this?
So my take is more as a kind of a bit of a farmer too. So I think something with the dirt. I mean, I live in a little community called Bliss, so I'm like Bliss Mama. I like to bliss out with the outdoors. But to me, my focus, because I'm the communications person here too, it's always like, how do we literally remind people that without the healthy land, we're going to be so sick? I mean, this is just like, and with this just big disconnect anymore with technology that we're having and our children. And it just goes back to that. It's like, it's just how do we remind people of the soil, like the food, all of it literally is who we are, that we're part of it. I guess it's that integration. So that's sort of the way I look at it. And when you talked about identity, I wear a lot of fleece, but I show my hours out in the sunshine without sunglasses on my face very much now. Lots of wrinkles.
Really excited around how much of today's conversation is focused on ease of access and experience to the outdoors. I think if the outdoor participation numbers that we're seeing in the last 10 years, and in particular the last 5, continue even on a gradual upward trend, someone's identity as an outdoorist, someone's participation in the outdoors is only going to continue to grow and be more likely. With that, organizations grow and change as well. And love to learn a little bit more about what's the big shiny object for Little Traverse Conservancy and AllTrails. What's next? What should we be on the lookout for on the horizon?
So I think that what's the next biggest thing for the Conservancy right now is this universal access. I think we have to highlight a new trail that was completed last year and then a brand new one that takes people to Lake Michigan. So it's located fairly easy to find, but I know that AllTrails will be it's in a really populated, like touristy area, this new trail that we have coming that will take people down to the lake. And so I think AllTrails is just going to help drive traffic for us that way and let people be aware of it. It's got a really complicated name. I think that it'll be helpful to be more visible on the app as well.
Yeah, I mean, AllTrails is just getting started. We released a lot of really awesome stuff this past year, including offline parks to keep people in the know, even when there's no cell service. But we're really just committed to that growth of experience, growing our community and deepening partnerships with folks like Little Traverse across Michigan, across the states, across the world even, to really help advance that sustainable outdoor recreation. So, keep an eye out on Instagram for all things AllTrails. And then, if you're a land manager out there and you want to get in touch with us to learn more about the public lands program, go to publiclands.alltrails.com. And we don't have an Instagram yet, but we'll be excited to just, as Pitt mentioned, just listen and learn from you to help ensure that we're helping in any way that we can.
Let me add that the features that AllTrails is always focused on and our team is focused on really are to help more people tap into the joy of being outside, right? To, again, make that experience as best as possible, help them form healthy habits and regular outdoor time. Again, because that is what's going to shift the mentality in this country and across the world of how we think about our open spaces, our natural spaces, and everything else. The more people we can get to find that connection. And that's where the features in AllTrails will always kind of drive our strategy will drive towards, features that help support that. And just to add, kind of another plug for the public lands program, we are literally just getting started with that. It's really been just about a year since we launched that, over 450 partners. There are so many more to engage with across this country. And then internationally as well. So, don't be surprised when you see stories coming out about people participating in this and the impact that it's having on recreational economies, recreation, sites and infrastructure. We're really excited for that. We're really excited for, the start of really a big impact effort and an impact team here at AllTrails to make a difference in the communities that we work with. I will add too, if you want to stay in the know, you want to experience this, AllTrails is a free app, right? Everybody can access it. So just go to alltrails.com, download the app, put it on your phone, start using it. If you love it, then you can upgrade. But there is no harm done in checking it out and trying it on your next adventure outside. Go for it. And then you will be in the know of all things that are happening in the near future.
that's a great way to summarize our entire conversation, I think, right? Little Traverse Conservancy's lands, Little Traverse Conservancy's trails and their offerings and their work with landowners, AllTrails accessibility to average individual to new person to experienced user. The services you're both providing are really meant to be universal. And I think that's our big takeaway, is that the outdoors really is for everyone, and that barrier to entry needs to be and continues to be fairly low in a lot of places. Cece, Pitt, Ann, I want to thank you for your time today. I know you're all busy cranking on a lot of things, and so it's really, really appreciated. We'll put some additional links in the show notes, in the liner notes for today as well, to the public lands program, to Little T's preserves and trail systems, and obviously also to, how to download AllTrails app as you'd like to. As always, Ramble and Mosey is sponsored by the C.S. Mott Foundation and the Conservation Fund. Production by Anna Moya, and thought leadership through Parallel Solutions. So thanks again for joining us all today, and we'll catch you all soon. Hope to see you outside.